Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Running Real Estate Podcast. I'm Ryan Haley, and today the topic that has been on my mind and that of a lot of people who are closely tied to the real estate industry is how does the election affect the real estate market? How are the results of this election going to affect our local real estate market? And it's something we've thought about many a times, but then we've also looked to the experts to give us guidance as to what happens during a typical election cycle, how that might be a little bit different this year given the state of our real estate market. So I thought I would share a couple thoughts with you. My first thought is this. I am extremely happy that we have an answer coming out of this election. Whether you are left or right, red or blue, I'm somewhat indifferent to that because I'm really just looking at the real estate market. And I honestly believe that the best thing about this election is we now have some certainty. Many of us thought that it honestly could be a month, 2 months, 3 months before we even got an answer from the election. But the best part is we now know which way we're going. And when we know which way we're going, it takes some of the unknown out of the equation. And for people in the real estate market and for those who want to enter the real estate market, meaning a buyer or a seller, certainty is a good thing. So with added certainty, my anticipation is that we are going to see more activity. If we go back the last couple of years, what most people don't realize is that since June of 2022, the real estate market nationwide has actually been in a recession. What does that mean? Well, the price of real estate, as you know, has continued to go up. So it wasn't a pricing recession, but it was actually a number of transactions recession. So since that period of time, we've seen the total number of real estate sales throughout this country decrease. And in fact, 2024, based on the pace we're at right now, is going to be the lowest number of transactions going back into the early 90s as a nation. So we've been in this real estate transaction recession. But by now having certainty, most of the experts are predicting that 2025 is going to see an increase in total number of transactions upwards of possibly 12, 13%. Obviously, that's going to vary from community to community. But that's just the generalities that most people are predicting coming off of the election. What I want to do is kind of go into what we've seen with previous elections and what the numbers look like. So, in the past, here's a question. Does an election slow down the housing market? That's a question that we get very frequently. And the answer is that typically from October to November, the home sales in an election year do decrease. So in a normal fall real estate market, if you pull the election out, we typically see as you get through the fall market that sales decrease by about 9.8%. But in an election, they are magnified as to how the market slows. So typically in an election year, you might see a decrease in number of transactions by 15% in that window of time leading up to the election. I can tell you that definitely holds true as to what we saw here at the beach. There was the last 2 weeks or so before the election, definitely things contracted a little bit, and you could tell that people were just waiting to see the results. So this year, another interesting fact is 23% of first-time home buyers are waiting until after the election to buy. Obviously, these are numbers prior to the election, but 23% of new first-time home buyers were waiting to see what the results were with the election before actually making a purchase. Here's another question. Do more homes sell after an election? And I think going back to this first question that we had there, yes, number of transactions do decrease by about 15% leading up to the election. But here's the interesting piece, is they decrease during that period of time, but they don't go away. They rather pause, and then those 15% come boomeranging back after the election when there's more certainty. So, do more homes sell after an election? The answer is home sales tend to bounce right back, and 82% of the time, they have gone up the following year. So we've been in the lowest numbers going back to the 1990s. Now, after the election, we have this pent-up demand, which 82% of the time, the number of transactions increase after an election. This year, now this takes into consideration, I believe, not just resale homes, but also new construction. This year, experts forecast that the sales in 2024, we would have seen 4.6 million when you combine all residential sales, new construction, and resale. And the experts are predicting that we're going to see that jump to 5.2 million in 2025 after the election. Thinking about selling your home, but trying to avoid the stress and the hassle that comes along with preparing the home for sale, having to leave for multiple showings, and having all those people come through your open house. We have a solution for you. It's the guaranteed cash offer. The Ryan Haley team, after the last 22 years, has put together a plan that will guarantee a cash offer on your home, with a settlement taking place in as little as 21 days. If you are interested in learning more about the hassle-free guaranteed cash offer program, please visit AtlanticShoresOC.com or call 410-524-0919 and start packing. Another question: what happens to mortgage rates in an election year? Answer is, from July through November, in most election years, mortgage rates have decreased 72% of the time. Interestingly enough, what did we see here? July, August, September, we saw the decrease. When the Fed decided that they were going to decrease, we actually saw mortgage rates go up a little bit. This year, we've been in a volatile environment. Very true. Volatile rates have been going up and down. We've seen rates as low as about 6.8%. That was back in September. And now we are just back to that 7% level. But keep in mind, we are well below where we saw interest rates last year at this time. Last year at this time, we were up over 8%. Today, we are at or just below 7% and into the mid-sixes on most of your government loans. That's what we've seen coming off of the election. Final question here is, what happens to home prices after an election? And the answer is, prices have risen 88% of the time in the year following an election. So prices have a tendency to go up after an election. Why is that the case? Well, once again, it's this temporary pause leading up to, so there's this pause and contraction in number of transactions, right? And then we see the boomerang after the election where 82% of the time, number of transactions go up. 88% of the time, prices go up because there is more demand following the election. This year, national home prices are projected to continue going up by 2.5%. That's the average out of all of the experts believe that in 2025, across the entire country, we could see a bump in prices as much as 2.5%. Certain areas are definitely going to see more than that. And there are probably some areas that are going to see a decrease in prices as well, depending on how much inventory comes into play. Those would be areas like Florida, Texas. Here in the mid-Atlantic and into the Northeast, I can tell you that we have the beach market where we've seen inventory rise. There is more to choose from right now. And then we have the inland market with more primary residences, and that market has remained very tight, very balanced. So here's my prediction. After we look at what the experts have had to say as to what we see after an election, here's what I think. I can tell you that in the last couple weeks since the election, we are having more and more conversations. We are also seeing more and more buyers come out and start looking again. And the interesting thing with most of these buyers, they also have a home to sell. So this is where it's a little bit different. We have the people who, for the longest time, felt a little boxed in. They felt like they didn't want to trade out of their interest rate. And then they had the uncertainty of the election. Now, the uncertainty is gone, and we've seen interest rates decrease to some extent, and they're boomeranging back into the market. And they have something to sell, which means when they put that in the market, we're going to see more inventory, more to choose from for other buyers, and they have to buy. So I honestly believe that what the experts are predicting, increase in number of transactions of anywhere from 12 to 13%, I honestly think as a company, we're preparing for more than that. And with the local market, I think that we are primed where we could see some more transactions than an increase in 13%. But a lot of that is going to hinge on when do we see some relief in interest rates. And most of the experts are predicting that we could see interest rates that continue to decrease from a mortgage interest rate perspective, but we're not going to see the huge drops. Those who are waiting for a 2%, 3%, 4%, even a 5% interest rate could be waiting for some time. So my best advice is this. If you're looking to buy, I would be out now. There is this sweet spot of opportunity where there's a little bit more a little bit more to choose from. I'd be out there now. Secure the property. If you can find the one that checks your boxes, you want to grab that. You can't change the house. But down the road, there could come an opportunity to change the interest rate that's tied to that house. So there you have it. That's how the experts believe the election might affect the real estate market, and then my 2 cents as well. If you like this information, please share it with a friend. Please like and subscribe to our channels, and we'll see you back here next time with another edition of the Running Real Estate Podcast.